Hi there, Stratters. Welcome to episode 5 of Let's Brew Pauper. Today is the first time we've got a request from Spliffstar88. Spliffstar88, thank you for requesting today's card. The card I'm talking about today is Bequeathal, and it's a nice little green card drawing card. And let's start by comparing it to other card drawing cards. At converted mana cost 1, Bequeathal draws 2 cards. That's pretty good. That's better than most of the blue 1 mana card drawing cards like Ponder, that lets you put 3 cards, that lets you rearrange 3 cards on top of the library, but draws you only 1 card, and it's drawing more cards than Preordain, and it's drawing more cards than Swordscour. And I guess these are the 3 best blue card draw spells in the format. But Bequeathal has one big drawback. It's a creature enchantment, and you have to enchant a creature, and the creature has to die in order to get you the 2 cards. And I'm putting Bequeathal in the middle to find some creatures to enchant with Bequeathal to gain an advantage. And these have to be special creatures, because creature enchantments always have a disadvantage. Your opponent can 2-for-1 you by killing the creature you're trying to enchant in response to you casting the creature enchantment. So Bequeathal may not be good to target your own creatures, but Bequeathal is a very interesting card to target opponent's creatures. And then combine it with removal, kill the opponent's creatures, and restock your hand. With that in mind, I thought about the Aristocrats deck that Dan played in the Pauper Gauntlet with pretty good success. And I think Bequeathal has a home in this deck, and let's look at some creatures of this deck. The first creature of this deck is Blisterpot, and Blisterpot is like half of the creatures here. Converted mana cost 1, most of the creatures have converted mana cost 1, and it's good at dying, because when it dies you get a token. So half of the creatures in this deck are either good at dying or are forcing you to kill creatures. Blisterpot is good at dying. So is Brindleshot. Brindleshot is a very good creature, converted mana cost 2, a 1/1, and when it dies you get a 3/3 token. And last not least, Young Wolf. When the Young Wolf dies, it will come back because of its Undying ability. Pretty nice ability, pretty hard to kill that creature. And the other 3 creatures in the deck, Fume Spitter is some sort of a neutral creature because you can sacrifice it to itself. That's pretty good because it will die, obviously, and when you have enchanted it with Bequeathal, you will get to draw 2 cards. Carrion Feeder is another very powerful creature in this deck because it allows you to sacrifice your Blisterpot, your Brindleshot, or your Young Wolf, probably enchanted with Bequeathal or something else. And the last creature, Kildorian Dead, I only run 3 copies of it in this deck, is a pretty nice creature too. It was one of my first creatures that I played in Paper Magic, and I always thought it was very powerful because of the regeneration ability, and in this deck it really shines. You can sacrifice your Blisterpot, Brindleshot, or Young Wolf to it, and you will have a nice big attacker or blocker depending on whatever you need. As removal spells I run Bone Splinters, that kills a creature for 1 black mana and in addition forces you to sacrifice a creature. And I run Tragic Slip, which is an instant, and almost certainly kills a very big creature because you have many ways to trigger the Morbid ability, and thereby giving your target creature -13/-13. Yeah, that's the 2 removal spells in the main board. To be more aggressive, you run 3 copies of Hunger of the Howl Pack, another 1 mana card with Morbid ability, to put tokens onto your creatures that you plan to keep on the board, like Carrion Feeder. And because your big beaters need trample, you run 4 Rancors to ensure that your creatures can deal trample damage to your opponent. The rest of the deck is card advantage and card drawing. Unearth is a little nice black spell that allows you to put your creatures from the graveyard onto the battlefield again for just 1 black mana. And Read the Bones is a nice card drawing spell. Pretty neat in the deck. Converted mana cost 3 is a bit high sometimes, but it's the best there is for now. And last but definitely not least, Bequeathal, the theme of this episode. Another card drawing spell, and as I said earlier, it probably is better to enchant your opponent's creatures with Bequeathal and then killing them with Bone Splinters or Tragic Slip to restock your hand. In the sideboard you have Duress against blue control decks because you want to be able to discard the counter spells. You've got something against early aggression in the form of Innocent Blood. Lets you handle hexproof decks a little bit better. You have Mind Extractions against black and green decks because you sometimes can wipe their whole hand. It's especially nice against mono black control, or Stompy because they are mono black or mono green. And you've got some stuff to keep you alive against burn. One of them is Gnaw to the Bone that lets you gain much life from your hopefully full graveyard. And you've got the Silvok life stuff. Because you sacrifice your own creatures, it will trigger often. And you even got Nature's Claim to gain life because you are running artifact lands in your main board, 5 of them, the Tree of Tales and the Vault of Whisper. And Nature's Claim can be boarded in against burn because life gain is very important there. And last not least, you're running 2 copies of Wines of Vastwood. If your opponent has too much removal, you might want to board it in, but I'm not sure about the Wines of Vastwood yet. Maybe this card will be replaced in the future. With a deck pretty similar to this one, I started to hit the Just for Fun room and the tournament practice room, and let me show you what happened in the very first game in the tournament practice room. Here we go, match 1. This is the very first match with the deck in the tournament practice room, and I played against Kawamuka, and I kept a risky hand with 1 mana in it, but it is both colors and all my creatures, or mostly all of my creatures, cost only 1 mana, so I kept it. And this guy is amazing. He's running Wild Cantor and Bequeathal. And let me show you what happened. I'm playing a blocker in the form of Blisterpot. I cannot do anything against his Wild Cantor, drawing him 2 cards. And luckily for me, I find another land and I play the Carrion Feeder to enchant my Blisterpot with my own Bequeathal next turn in order to gain card advantage. And he enchants his Nest Invader with Rancor and sacrifices a token. And by sacrificing the token, he can play the Ulvenwald Beer that you see here, and this one has a morbid ability as well. And by this, he puts more counters onto the Nest Invader and hits me for 6. Pretty nice. Now comes the turn I've been waiting for. I'm trying to enchant my Blisterpot with the Bequeathal, as I told you, after putting the Rancor on the Carrion Feature, but my opponent immediately responds by sacrificing the Wild Cantor for red mana, targeting my Carrion Feeder with Lightning Bolt. So I've got no other choice but to sacrifice my Kynegarten token and my Blisterpot in response to his Lightning Bolt to keep my Carrion Feeder alive. But please note, my opponent here is down to 1 card. He will draw 2 cards of his Bequeathal, and my Bequeathal will fizzle. So that's the disadvantage with the card. It sometimes can backfire. Your opponent can 2-for-1 you. And here I'm still pretty confident with my deck. My board position is not so much worse than the one of my opponent. Granted, he's dealt me 6 damage and he's ahead in the race, but I have an Unearth and can sacrifice even more creatures. Here I'm provoking an attack and I want my opponent to block with the Ulvenwald Beer, which he does. Then I can sacrifice my Blisterpot, and the token is generating to keep my Carrion Feeder alive. And I will hit him for 8, 6 trample damage, and now my board position is better than his. He's got 3 cards, I've got 3 cards. I'm still pretty confident here, but he did something interesting. He put more counters on his Nest Invader, again by Morbid ability. And I'm playing the Young Wolf, and as additional cost sacrificing him to my card draw spell, but I failed to draw something and I'm dead on board. So, game 2 of this interesting match. After sideboarding, I'm on the play, and I've got 2 mana removal and a creature, so I'm keeping this hand, wondering what Kavamuka will have, and this Mog Fanatic screws my plan that I originally had. My plan originally was cast Brindlebore and enchant it with Bequeathal. Now I can't do it because Mog Fanatic clearly beats the Bequeathal, and I can't play the Young Wolf either as a Mog Fanatic target. Bequeathal right now and Rancor both are dead cards in my hand, and his board position evolves. I'm casting the Silverclive stuff with the intention of having a way to force him to sacrifice the Mog Fanatic as a response to my equip. And here he doesn't pay the echo cost for the Mog Marshal and attacks with 2 creatures. And I choose to block. And remember, he didn't pay echo for the Mog War Marshal, so he died, thereby triggering Morbid for his 2 Hunger of the Howl packs that he had in his hand, completely destroying my creatures, and he has 2 4/4s in play and 2 1/1s. He's down to 2 cards, and I take the opportunity to enchant the Martyr of Ashes with the Bequeathal and destroying it by the Bone Splinters or Tragic Slip. I took Tragic Slip, thereby drawing me 2 cards of the Bequeathal. Interesting cards. I would have preferred more land. In this situation, I would like to equip my Young Wolf or my Boar token with the Silverclive stuff to gain more life, and he still has a lot of pressure on me. And here I'm being attacked by 2 4/4s, and I decide to block with combined power and toughness of 5 so that he can kill only 1 of my creatures. But again, he sacrifices the Eldrazi token to trigger Morbid and puts more counters onto his Mog Fanatic, leaving me no choice but to use the Bone Splinters on the Mog Fanatic. And even then, he can use the Mog Fanatic to destroy my Eldrazi Scion before I can equip it. Unfortunately, I cannot do anything with the colorless mana from the Scion, so there is no point in sacrificing it. And he attacks me for 7, forcing me down to 8. He's got no trample damage yet, so I'm not dead yet. I can play the Blister Pot and equip it to stay alive at least. Here I have to block the 4/4, the Goblin token, making this one very hard. And here they come. His board position is very aggressive. My life total is dangerously low. I'm blocking the Goblin token to gain 3 life to bring me back into the game, but he has a Lightning Bolt, thereby ending this match, and I felt completely outmatched. After being so completely destroyed by Kavamuka, I immediately asked him to send me the deck list, and he was so friendly to send it to me. And here I am importing it for the very first time. Haven't looked at it, and this is the deck list. And yeah, let's have a look at it. He's running 4 Bequeathal. He's running a Death Spark, very interesting. 1 single Firebolt, 4 Lightning Bolts, so quite an amount of burn. 6 burn cards. Mog Fanatic as an outlet for Hunger of the Howl pack, I imagine. Generator Servant as a one-off. Interesting deck, interesting technique as well. 2 Celtic Marauders, 4 Mock War Marshal, no, 3 Mock War Marshal that are essentially outlets for Morbid triggers as well. He's running 3 Brimstone Volleys. Another great Morbid card that I didn't even see thrown at my face. He's running a single Rancor. That's a little bit, I don't know, that's not enough, I guess. And he's running, as I said, 4 Bequeathal, Nest Invaders, Ulvenwald Bears. This is a nice combination, Nest Invader, Ulvenwald Bear, because the Nest Invader will spawn a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi creature, and this can be used to cast the Ulvenwald Bear cheaper and will trigger the Morbid ability of the bear. So very nice technique. He's running only 4 tapped lands. Maybe my deck runs too many tapped lands, and he's running 21 lands total, so that's a lot. I would probably cut 1 Bequeathal and maybe 1 Hunger of the Howl Pack for 2 more copies of Rancor. I think it's too important to have Trample. Maybe I would cut the Generator Servant for Rancor as well. Okay, in the sideboard, what do we have here? Branching Bolt, definitely a tremendously good spell for the color combination red and green. You can deal 3 damage to creatures with flying and 3 damage to the target creature without flying with 1 spell, and that's pretty neat. He's running 1 more Death Spark, must be pretty good in the mirror match. Electrickery against token, Flame Slash against bigger toughness creature, 2 copies of it. A Martyr of Ashes, again to deal with the tokens. A Race to probably against Tron, I have no idea. Ancient Grudge, tremendously good card, especially with Flashback, 2 copies of it. A Harvest Pyre, because he will have a lot of creatures in his graveyard. Good technique. 2 Natural State. Very interesting removal spell for artifacts or enchantments. Definitely a good one in the format. I personally prefer Nature's Claim with the technique of running artifact lands to make it a viable card against burn. Then he's running Brindlebore against burn, presumably to gain some life and still trigger Morbid, as is the Silver Life stuff. And finally, Tranquility, probably a card against Hexproof. Interesting deck, people. So here you have 2 copies of decks that definitely benefit from Bequeathal. Should be very nice seeing them perform. Finally, here are 2 screenshots of the deck list for you, so you can easily pause the video and write them down if you think one of the 2 decks is interesting enough to test it. That's it for today's episode. Have fun, have a good time, stay healthy, and see you again next week.